Hi, happy Sunday. I hope everybody is doing well. Miss you guys terribly, so this is nice to be able to connect this way. We're going to go ahead and read chapters 7 and 8 today in Night Books by J.A. White. Chapter 7 is The Girl Who Followed a Unicorn. Alex woke up early the next morning. He found some clean clothes about his own size hanging in the closet and knocked on Yasmin's door. No one answered. Alex figured that she had already passed through the closet door and started her work for the day. What is Natasha making her do? Alex wondered. Remembering the scratches along Yasmin's arm, her dirt-stained face. Something messy for sure. Digging holes? Burying the bodies of Natasha's victims? The girl was so confusing. She seemed set on disliking him, but if she hadn't helped Alex that first night, he'd probably be dead. She's not that bad, like Natasha, Alex thought. She's just scared, like me. He went into the kitchen to grab some breakfast and saw Eleanor laying on the counter. She looked away, refusing to acknowledge his presence. Sorry about yesterday, Alex said. I just wanted the library to myself. If I had known that Natasha was going to hurt you, I wouldn't have said anything. Eleanor didn't open her eyes. Does she even understand what I'm saying? He knew that Eleanor could somehow communicate with Natasha, but maybe that was a witch thing. Just because she can turn herself invisible doesn't mean she understands English. Still, he wanted to make it up to her somehow, and since a verbal apology wasn't doing the trick, he grabbed a handful of Fruit Loops and spread them out on the counter next to her. Here, he said, maybe this will make you feel... Eleanor opened her eyes and hissed. Alex saw claws beginning to extend from her paw and jerked his hand backwards. But he wasn't nearly fast enough. An orange streak blurred in his direction. Instead of the expected pain, however, Alex felt only a weak patter against his chest. He looked down in confusion and saw Fruit Loops flying on the floor. Eleanor had thrown them. Alex examined her paw more carefully and saw that what he had first mistaken for claws were actually 4 tiny fingers and a thumb, covered by a thin layer of black fur. As he watched, these fingers quickly retracted into her paw. You're just full of surprises, aren't you? Alex asked, stunned. Eleanor gave a long, toothy grin and turned her back to him completely. Alex retrieved his newest notebook, the only one with any blank pages left, then used the bone key that Yasmin had left on the dining room table to enter the library. He spread the notebook across the desk and laid a pencil next to it. There, he said, taking stock. That looks convincing. Alex had no intention of actually trying to write a story, but now, if Natasha entered the library unannounced, he could at least look like he had been working. For the time being, he would just claim that his old stories were actually new ones. I haven't written many in this notebook yet, Alex thought. But there has to be over 50 stories between my two older night books. If all I'm doing is reading 1 story a night, I have plenty of time. Right now, it's more important to learn as much about the apartment as possible so I can figure out a way to escape. Alex had always relied on books to be his teachers. Hoping that things would be no different here, he set out to explore the library. Yasmin said these were all story collections, he thought. What if she was wrong? What if there's something here I can use? He scanned the titles. The Black Horseshoe and Other Tales of Horror, Stories Scratched Beneath a Coffin Lid, 13 Dead Ends. Alex would have loved to have read them all. But other than entertainment value, he didn't really think that would be of much use. Then again, what exactly was he looking for? A spell book would be helpful, he thought. Or even better, one of those fake books that unlocks a secret passageway leading out of this place. Alex didn't see anything like that. All he saw were storybooks. As he made his way up the winding staircase, the books grew older, the dust jackets giving way to leather bindings cracked with age. English, fading from the spines, gradually replaced by what Alex thought was German. Der Dunkenword, he read hesitantly, tripping over the foreign words. Das Bach die Verschenkinder? With no other way to tell what kind of books these were, Alex flipped through one at random. His gaze lingered on several woodcuts. A beautiful woman sleeping in a casket made of glass, a grotesque imp dancing in delight around a campfire, an old crone leading a boy and girl into a house made of candy. Fairy tales, Alex thought, closing the book. The original scary stories. By the time he finally reached the top of the tower, Alex was panting from exertion. He stretched his hand into the air and grazed the stone ceiling with the tips of his fingers. It was as solid as expected. Alex hadn't really believed that there would be an exit at the top of the staircase, but he was disappointed nevertheless. Now what? He asked. The titles were clearly dead ends. Yet Alex, who felt that libraries possessed their own sort of magic, still believed that there was something important to be learned here. I need to search the books themselves, he thought. At the very least, I can see what type of story Natasha likes. That could be helpful if I ever do write new stories. Alex quickly retraced his path, a little bit easier than going up, but not by much, and grabbed the first 5 books off the lowest shelf. There were other titles that seemed more interesting, but Alex figured the best way to perform a thorough search was to start at the beginning, methodically work his way upwards. He sat down at his writing desk and tucked 4 of the books beneath his chair. There they would remain hidden if he had any unexpected visitors. Stay focused, he warned himself, knowing that once he started reading, he might get distracted and forget the main purpose of his search. Alex opened the first book. It was a volume dedicated to ghost stories. Alex tried to skim. He really did. But ever so often, a turn of phrase would bait his eyes and he would forget himself for several pages before breaking through the surface again and remembering his task. The next book, a collection of poorly written urban legends, wasn't nearly as interesting. Alex was able to give it a cursory examination in less than 10 minutes. He sat at the bottom of the pile and placed the 3rd book on the table. A quartet of creepy novelettes titled Handprints on the Window. It was long, really long. Alex braced himself with a single elbow and flipped through the pages. For the first time, feeling the enormity of his task. Am I wasting my time with this, he wondered. Maybe I should pull each book off the shelf and check and see if there's something behind them. Lost in his doubts, it took Alex an extra beat to realize that there was something different about this book. When he finally saw it, he had to flip back a couple of pages to where the change first began. There was writing in the margins. Words huddled together in small groups. They had been printed with the pencil. Here and there, Alex could even see unsure marks where the writer had made a correction. The penmanship wasn't the neatest, but it was legible enough. Looks like it was written by a kid, Alex thought. Maybe somebody my age. I was trying to figure out the best way to show you. So this is the handwriting that Alex sees in the margin of the book that he's reading. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the story first, the book first, and then I'm going to go back and read what he sees in the margins, okay? He started to read. Raymond was awoken in the middle of the night by scratching noises on the other side of his bedroom ceiling. He lay in bed and listened carefully. Something scampered from one side of the ceiling to the other, a trail of sound. Mouse, Raymond muttered in disgust. He had lived alone in the old farmhouse for nearly 60 years. It wasn't the first time a rodent had tried to use his attic for a winter home. Well, I'm up now, he thought. Might as well get some traps up there before I have an infestation on my hands. He dressed quickly and started a pot of coffee. The scratching noise continued, louder than before. Raymond reassessed his earlier opinion. Could be a squirrel, he thought. Maybe even a raccoon. He pulled down the attic stairs and climbed them carefully, his arthritic knees barking in protest. Sunrise was still a few hours away, and the attic was cold and dark. Raymond ducked his head beneath the low ceiling and shone a flashlight to the left and right, where the spaces between the joists remained exposed. He was looking for rips in the insulation, some kind of sign that he had an unwelcomed guest. Instead, he found a strange lump about the size of a softball. What is that? He asked. Raymond slowly got to his knees and parted the fiberglass insulation with his shirt sleeve, revealing a silver, oval-shaped object speckled with red dots. An egg, Raymond thought, struggling to come to terms with the sheer strangeness of it. Some kind of bird get in here, maybe? He swung his flashlight over the rest of the insulation and saw similar lumps evenly spaced throughout the attic. A dozen, maybe 2. The silver egg shook. Raymond fell backwards in surprise, his hand connecting with something warm and slimy on the floor. It slithered between his fingers and underneath the sleeve of his shirt, moving fast. I'm going to go and read the handwriting Alex sees in the margins. Shh. I told the witch that I'm here picking tonight's story for her, but I want to write some things down first. I don't have any paper, so I'm going to use these books. Different book each time, so that the witch doesn't find out. If she does, I'll be in big trouble. How I got here was I was playing in the park and I saw a unicorn walk into this apartment building. I know unicorns aren't real. I'm not stupid. But I've always loved unicorns, so I followed it anyways, just in case. It went into the elevator, which is funny. And I took the stairs, and I saw it walk into this apartment. I knocked on the door, and the witch who lives here trapped me inside. And so here I am. I know Mom and Dad will find me very soon. I just have to do what the witch tells me to do. She won't hurt me. I'm a good girl. She's mean, I know, but I think she is lonely too. Otherwise, why does she want somebody to read her a story every night? Plus, she can do magic, which I think is so cool. Also, her cat can turn invisible. And also, I think there were other kids here, but they're not here anymore. So the witch must have let them go. If I am a good girl, she will. And then it stops. The writing stopped mid-sentence. Alex could imagine the girl hearing footsteps in the distance and slipping the book back onto the shelf. He flipped through the rest of the pages, but there was nothing more. Alex stared down at the book, trying to process all that he had learned. A sheen of cold sweat gathered at the nape of his neck. Could Yasmin have written this? He wondered, and quickly rejected the possibility. Didn't sound like her at all, and Yasmin was far too frightened of the witch to deface one of her precious storybooks. It must have been another prisoner. Before me. Before Yasmin. Alex stared up the library. I have to keep searching and see if she wrote more in a different book. She might have learned something important. She might have escaped. Before Alex could get out of his seat, somehow he heard the familiar clicking sound of a bone key turning in the lock. He slipped the book of novelettes beneath his desk and grabbed a pencil, trying to look as though he had been dutifully at work the entire time. The door opened. So that brings us to chapter 8, which is called The Beautiful Darkness. Hey, Yasmin said, stepping into the room. Hey, Alex said, as naturally as possible. Yasmin's goggles hung around her neck. There were fresh scratches on her arm. Her apron was splattered with some yellow substance. She shook the dirt out of her hair and slipped the Mets cap on her head. Dinner will be ready in like an hour, she said. So you should finish up whatever you're doing. Thanks, Alex said. Okay then. She turned around as if to leave and then turned back. That story that you read last night, it didn't suck. Alex looked down at the desk so Yasmin didn't see the blush spreading across his face. You really think so? Alex asked. She gave him a strange look. This can't be the first time somebody told you that you're a good writer. Your English teacher must love you. Not exactly, Alex said. I do okay in school with essays and stuff, but it's not the same. And I've never shared my nightbook stories before. Is it like you said yesterday? You're afraid people will think you're weird? He nodded. Well, you don't have to worry about that happening with me, Yasmin said. I already think you're weird. You can't make it any worse. Thanks, Alex said, unable to tell of her stone-faced expression if she was joking or not. Maybe it's just the way she is, he thought. This might be an attempt to befriend me. If so, Alex couldn't mess it up. He needed Yasmin's help if he wanted to escape the apartment. Unfortunately, the girl was already turning to go. So, to keep the conversation alive, Alex asked the first question that popped into his head. Did you live here in the building? You know, before? Yasmin gave a quick shake of her head. Then how did you get here? I don't like to talk about it, okay? She left the library and headed towards the kitchen. That's cool, Alex said. He held the door open as he called after her. I was just curious how Natasha tricked you into coming inside. With me, it was a scary movie. Yasmin stopped and looked over her shoulder. What does that even mean? She asked. I heard it playing behind the apartment door, Alex said. It called to me. Couldn't stop myself from knocking. A movie? She asked in disbelief. That's how Natasha got you? Wasn't my fault, Alex said, growing angrily. Magic, remember? It brainwashed me? Whatever. Well, how did you get trapped here? Alex asked. He looked at her cap and scoffed. Let me guess. You heard the Mets playing on TV, ninth inning, and you just couldn't help yourself? Her expression grew cold. You want to know what happened? She asked, stepping forward. Fine. My friend, Amana, lives in this apartment building on the 12th floor. Only when I came to see her that Saturday, the elevator stopped on the 4th floor. Weird, but no big deal, right? I got off the elevator thinking I'll just take the stairs, but then I smelled the most amazing thing. It's in Arabic, so give me a second. Kasha Minusha? Yasmin registered Alex's confusion, looked and added, it's rice and lamb or chickpeas if you're a vegetarian like me, all mashed together inside of squash, cooked with lemon juice, mint, and a ton of garlic. Sounds delicious, Alex said, stomach grumbling. It is, replied Yasmin, her voice softened. My suto, grandma, and I used to make it together. As soon as I smelled it, I ran down the hallway, no longer thinking straight. I was convinced that if I knocked on the door to apartment 4E, Suto would answer. Yasmin looked away. She didn't, of course. How could she? My Suto's been dead for over a year. But for that one moment, I was positive that she had returned to me. And then finding out it was all a trick, it was like losing her all over again. For a few moments, Alex didn't know what to say. I'm sorry, he finally managed. Yasmin wiped away the tears that had begun to fall from her eyes. So, what was the movie? She asked. What? The one you heard through the apartment door? Oh, Alex said, wishing he had never brought it up in the first place. It was Night of the Living Dead. Yasmin shrugged her shoulders. Never heard of it. She turned and left. This time, she didn't look back. After dinner, Natasha set up the oil diffuser and settled into her chair. Alex took his place next to her. Despite everything, he was excited to read the story he had picked out. Natasha's right, he thought. I do love an appreciative audience. You're able to work better without the disgusting fur ball in the room? She asked. Yes, Alex said, thank you. This can be a good home for you, storyteller, Natasha said, as Yasmin took her place on the love seat and primly folded her hands in her lap. A place where you can be yourself. I was thinking about what you told me yesterday, how you wanted to sacrifice your poor little night books so you could be as boring as other children your age. I'm curious about something. Being different isn't anything new for you, is it? Truly, you've been blessed with these dark thoughts your entire life. She leaned forward and clasped her hands beneath her chin. So why the sudden change of heart? What happened? Alex almost told her, but his storytelling instincts again warned him that this would be best to keep the real story of the night books to himself. The witch wouldn't hurt him because if she did, she'd never find out the truth. Just like Scheherazade, he thought. Nothing specific, Alex said. It was just time for a change. Is that so? Asked Natasha. She smirked, clearly seeing through his lie, but allowing it to pass for now. The meaning of her nasty expression was clear. You'll tell me eventually. It's not like you're going anywhere. I left you fresh paper in the library, she said, eyeing the notebook in his hand. Why are you still using that old thing? I'm just used to it, I guess, Alex said. Give it here. She flicked her wrist and the book flew into her hands. Alex jumped in surprise and Natasha cackled heartedly. That was a good spell, no? Amazing, Alex said. When it was clear that she was waiting for a response, compared to creating magical rooms that bent the laws of reality, making a book fly into your hands was pretty small potatoes. Nevertheless, Natasha seemed immensely impressed with herself. Apparently, Alex wasn't the only one who enjoyed an audience. She turned the notebook over in her hands. What happened here? She asked, examining the outside of the book. The back and front covers had peeled away in several sections, exposing raw strips of white. Only a rubber band kept the loose pages from slipping away. You have a temper tantrum when writing something and it didn't go your way? Alex hesitated, not wanting to tell Natasha any more about himself than necessary. When her eyes narrowed, however, he began to talk. That started as my writing journal when I was in the 4th grade, he said. My teacher told us to cover it with pictures of things we liked, so the journals would be more personalized. I went online and printed out all of my favorite things. Zombies, monsters, killer dolls. It was really hard to fit them all in the notebook, but I worked at it, cutting each picture exactly right so it all fit together like a puzzle. It took me an entire weekend, but it was worth it. Couldn't wait to start writing. The smile that had blossomed on Alex's face suddenly faded, and then I brought it to school. Saw how different mine was from everybody else's. They'd all printed out pictures of athletes, cute animals, boy bands, photos of friends and family. We had to leave the notebooks on our desk that first day like a museum, and the other kids kept staring at mine and giving me weird looks. I took the journal home that night and tore all the pictures off. It became my first night book. Natasha stared at him for a long time and sighed deeply. I'm all kinds of mystified by you, boy, she said. The beautiful darkness that dances through your brain is a cause for celebration, and yet, for some strange reason, you run from it. Why is that? I just want to be like everybody else, Alex said. Natasha laughed. What made you think you have a choice? She asked. She handed him the notebook and pushed a button on the oil diffuser. The air shimmered as the misting room came into being. You're not like everyone else, and there's nothing you can do about it. We are what we are. These stories, they're just the real you bubbling to the surface, weird, dark, and twisted. Alex felt his face growing warm. Natasha was saying everything that he had always feared. She's right, he thought. There's darkness running through me. Why else would I have all these terrible ideas in my... Oh, goodness, Natasha said, her face cloaked by the blue mist. Now you're all sad and misty-eyed. Hey, you know what always cheers me up? A story. So get to it. The story is called The Shape in the Mirror. Katie loved vampires. She had read all the books and watched all the movies. She knew all the rules. A vampire couldn't enter a house without being invited first. They didn't cast a reflection. You became a vampire by getting bitten or drinking vampire blood. Sometimes Katie thought it would be cool to be a vampire. She made the mistake of telling this to some kids at lunch. They decided that Katie was weird and started to bully her. It spread like wildfire throughout the school. It got so bad that Katie and her family had to move to a different town. Their new house wasn't as nice as their old house. There was a musky smell that wouldn't go away no matter how many times her parents scrubbed the floors. Even weirder, the former occupants had abandoned some of their furniture as though they had left in a hurry. An old sofa, several bookcases, the mirror in Katie's room. It was really old, with strange symbols carved into the wooden frame. Katie's dad offered to move it to the basement, but Katie told him no. She liked creepy things. The next morning, Katie saw something unusual. Her room was on the first floor, and the way the mirror was turned, you could look into it and see through her bedroom window all the way to the house across the street. Behind her reflection, she saw a dark shape in her neighbor's front yard. Katie turned around and peeked through her window, thinking that it must be a dog or something. The front lawn was empty. When Katie looked back in the mirror, however, she could see the shape again. In fact, she thought it had gotten a little bit closer. She checked again. Through the window, no shape. In the mirror, shape. It was impossible. Katie called her big brother to show him, but the shape had completely vanished. Her brother shook his head and called her a freakazoid like he always did. He missed his friends and blamed Katie for the sudden move. The shape didn't appear for 3 more days. When it finally returned, there was no doubt that it had gotten closer. Instead of sitting on her neighbor's front lawn, the shape had crossed to the middle of the street. Katie still couldn't tell what it was. The reflection was blurry, as though that part of the mirror was smudged. She thought it might have been some kind of animal. Katie didn't see the shape for a very long time after that. Eventually, she figured that it had all just been a figment of her imagination. But then she looked in the mirror one night, saw the shape peeking through her window. She could see it clearly now. It had bat-like wings folded around its body like a black robe and eyes as red as blood. A single claw reached up and scratched the glass. Katie covered the mirror with a blanket. She told her parents what she had seen. They exchanged a worried glance and said they would get rid of the mirror first thing in the morning. Her father told Katie to sleep in the guest room. She was trying to do just that when her brother walked in. He said that he had overheard their parents talking. They didn't believe that there really was a shape in the mirror. They thought Katie was crazy, and tomorrow some men in white coats were going to come and take her away forever. Katie decided that there was only one way to prove that she was telling the truth, so her parents didn't send her away. When she was sure that everybody was asleep, she snuck up to her room and pulled the blanket off the mirror. The shape was standing right behind her reflection. Its ancient, scrunched-up face was covered by a thin layer of fur. It reached down and wrapped its long talons around the mirror Katie. Then it unfurled its massive wings and rose out of sight, taking the reflection with it. Katie stared into the mirror. She saw nothing but the empty room behind her. The shape was gone. Her reflection was gone. She fainted. Katie woke up the next morning, hating sunlight. By nighttime, 2 long fangs had punched through her upper gums. It turned out that she wasn't such a vampire expert after all. She'd always thought that people lost their reflections after they became vampires. Now she knew it was the other way around. First, your reflection was stolen. Then the change began. Her stomach rumbled. Katie crept down the hall to her brother's room. He was asleep. His head was turned away from her, exposing his bare neck. She entered his room and closed the door behind her. Alex finished reading just as the oil diffuser cycle came to an end. Blue mist disappeared into the air as the magic walls vanished. "Your story is all wrong," Natasha said. Alex's cheeks burned. What do you mean?" he asked, unable to meet her eyes. This was part of the reason why he never shared his stories with anyone. The slightest criticism was a hornet's sting. "The girl, she turns into a vampire at the end, right?" "Yes, but that can't be. She never gets bitten by one." "That's the whole idea," Alex said, hating the defensive tone in his voice. "I wanted to do something different, so I made the mirror creature turn her into a vampire by taking her reflection." "But that's not how it works," Natasha said in a reluctant tone. "I'm surprised at you, storyteller. I thought you knew better than that." Alex considered arguing, but he could see that it wouldn't do any good. Natasha would never understand that he was trying to do something creative. In her mind, the story had simply been inaccurate. "Sorry?" Alex said. "Apology not accepted," replied Natasha. She smiled smugly like a know-it-all who had just proven the teacher wrong. "Fortunately for you, I'm a witch, which makes me an expert in all these matters. I'll be sure to let you know if you get any other details wrong in the future." "Can't wait," Alex muttered under his breath. Natasha stood up and pressed her ear against the wall. After a few minutes, she nodded with satisfaction. "Good news," she said. "Your story might not have made any sense, but it still got the job done." Alex's face flushed, this time with anger instead of embarrassment. He was tired of hearing his writing criticized. "What do you mean, got the job done?" he snapped, ignoring Yasmin's look of warning. "What are you even listening to?" Natasha gave him an appraising look. "One of those, are you?" she asked, rubbing her hands together. "Curious type. Got to know what makes the clock tick. The rain fall? Not so fun if that characteristic, Alex, leads to trouble." Alex swallowed nervously as Natasha took a step closer to him. "Sorry," he said. I just thought it might make a good story, you know? Noises in the wall, creepy stuff." "Always a little author," Natasha said, though it was clear by the look on her face that she didn't believe him. "You're sure you're not curious about the apartment itself? Maybe you think you could figure out a way to escape if you only knew its secrets." "No," Alex said. "It's not like that at all." Natasha snapped her fingers in his face. Alex flinched, expecting a spell, but she just wanted him to stop talking. "Since you're being so forthcoming with me," Natasha said, spitting out the word forthcoming in a way that implied its opposite, "I'll do the same for you. The dark magic that keeps this apartment up and running is very old and not quite what it used to be. Sometimes things shift out of alignment and grind together like a car that's been driven one too many miles. When that happens, the walls shake. Cracks appear." Alex nodded, remembering his first day in the apartment, how he thought he was in the middle of an earthquake. "That thing about dark, that's the thing about dark magic, though. It thrives on nightmares, Natasha said. When you read it as a scary story, you soothe its aches and pains, and then it can rest easy again, at least for a little while. Alex watched Natasha. Carefully, she spoke. The smirk on her face made it clear that she was keeping something from him, that she wanted him to know that she was keeping something from him. She was teasing him with half-truths. Are you saying the apartment is alive? Alex asked. Natasha snorted with laughter. Now that's a crazy idea, she said. Maybe you can write a story about it. And that's the end of chapter 8. Leads us to chapter 9. So go ahead and draw me a picture of what you think something looks like that we read today. And I will read to you tomorrow. Thanks. Bye.